Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Sentry DFS Tactics show. Got a lot to cover for you all. We need to figure out who our top plays are, who the players we want to pivot to, players we want to fade away from. Of course, I want to hear from you all in case you all have made any wagers, who you think you are focused on this week, and all that. Got a lot to cover, so let's not waste any more time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler, much better golf DFS player. Go check out fantasynational.com. You will not regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where I post research every week on the PGA Tour. And that came out this past Monday around the previous 10 winners here at Kapalua. So if you want to see the research that I do every week for the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site, X or Instagram. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my weekly player exposure. And that'll be no different. That comes out after the show every Wednesday on Calls. And the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see those bits of information, then give me a follow over at X as well. And lastly, for social media, Gabe's X handle is in the description. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. It's a very good read. Gets you well prepared for the week at hand. Normally, I would say that you are going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday. He's not hosting that this week. It will return next week for the first full field PGA event of the year. So you don't want to miss out. Go subscribe to Gabe's article. It is free to do so. And if you are a subscriber, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday as we continue the DFS talk over there after Calls. So go follow him over on social media and subscribe to that article. And then lastly, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all in addition to the poll question, which I will provide momentarily after the intro here. Want to hear your thoughts on that. And then I want to hear if you've made any wagers, who the players are that you're focused on or perhaps fading away from, all that good stuff. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 Sentry. And we are going to start, as I promised Monday and failed for you all. Monday, promised you all to look at the wind. We are doing that this evening, and you can see this is the full forecast. I figured we'll do a little bit more in-depth look at the weather, considering just forgot to on Monday. But while you are looking at that, let me type out this poll question very, very quickly. Start a poll, and the poll question is, what place does the highest debutante finish this week? And I'll give you 4 options: win, top 5, top 10, or top 20. So let me post that out. What place does the highest debutante finish this week? And post that. There we go. So there, the poll question is out for you all. Please, if you are watching this, please fill that out. Would love to hear the community's thoughts on that. And if you're able to join us in chat, put in who you think is going to be the highest debutante. But anyway, we're going to look at Wind Finder here very quickly. Sometimes the wind can play a decent-sized factor for performance at Kapalua. Most notably, 2020, I believe it was, when the winds were just howling all weekend long. For this week, you see tomorrow relatively calm, in the mid-teens for gusts, maybe reaching double digits sustained winds. Now Friday and Saturday looks like the winds will pick up a little bit in the afternoon, but no half of the draw or favor of the draw to focus on, as this is only a 59-man field. and a no-cut event. So we don't have to worry about trying to get 6 of 6 through or focusing on a good half of the draw, as everybody's going to play all 4 rounds. So you see Friday and Saturday the wind could pick up maybe a little bit if you wanted to be the most analytical about this. Maybe perhaps the players that are the latest of tee times on Friday could be the most affected or most negatively affected. I'm not going to put any weight really into the wind or into the tee time. We're looking at tee times. There's just not enough here for me, especially as a no-cut event. And then on Sunday, you can see looks to be beautiful. Mid-70s and no wind at all. If we go into, I thought we would have a super forecast. There is no super forecast. So that's what we have for Kapalua this weekend. So a little bit of wind Friday afternoon, a little bit of wind maybe Saturday afternoon. But overall, no half of the draw to focus on, since everybody is going to make the cut unless there's a withdrawal. So just play your guys who you think is going to play the best. So with that out of the way, we'll move on over to Fantasy National. And I originally had the wind forecast or moderate and windy filters. I'm not going to look at those instead. Let's just recap very quickly the top players that play when a round is easy. Let me unstar these because I was gathering the most projected ownerships very recently. I just got home from a wiffle ball game. We need to keep Ricky, actually. Not Ricky, gosh dang it, Rory. Rory starred, as he doesn't have a tee time. Okay. Keep the easy round to par filter. When a round has been easy this past calendar year, your top performers have been Colin Morikawa, Ludwig Aubert, Eric Cole, Xander Schauffele, Adam Hadwin, Victor Hovland, Patrick Cantlay, Russell Henley, Tom Kim, and Luke List. So make sure you give these players a boost in your lineups or in your rankings or in your considerations. These players have been the best when a round is easy, and very, very, very rarely does Kapalua and the Sentry not play easy. I see we have at least 1 or 2 answers in the poll right now. Just one right now, a top 20. Okay. So, again, while a debutant has not won, at least for a long while, if ever, here at the Sentry, it does not preclude them from playing well. So, 1 vote here for a top 20. Interesting, but nothing inside the top 10. All right, so with that, this is a decent segue since we've been focused on easy to par all week. That's going to give you a pretty good baseline or a pretty good feel for the players that have risen in my rankings fairly significantly. So let's go ahead and jump to the mixed condition model that I have made for this week's Sentry. Now, there are a couple of changes from Monday night when I was going through some of these, some of the in-depth metrics and filters and whatnot. So I will try to explain that as best as I can. We're going to start with 10% off the tee when a round is easy. Now, I originally did not have anything in off the tee. And then Monday night, we go back and take a look at we take a look at last year's mixed condition model, which was yielded decent results from last year's Sentry. And off the tee was in there, this same combination of metric and filter. Off the tee when it's easy. And it was one of the more predictive metrics that I used based on the players who finished in the top 10. We didn't go over that in the actual show live, but I went ahead and looked at that a little bit yesterday in preparation for my mixed condition model. And it was one of the more predictive models. So 10% off the tee when a round is easy. 15% approach. Look, I've basically focused on a couple of different shot types this week. 15% might be a bit heavy based on the numbers that we've seen this week, but I'm always going to prefer approach-based players. So that's just a little bit of my bias in there and up front for you all as the viewers. And I still think approach is going to be pretty darn important. It's been the most important for your top 10s, your top 5s, just not for your winners. So 15% strokes gained approach, 15% on Tiff Eagle Bermuda, specifically Tiff Eagle Bermuda, those courses, the Bay Hill, host of the Arnold Palmer, PGA National, used to be the Honda, not sure what it is for this year, but PGA National, of course Kapalua where we are this week, Port Royal, the host of the Butterfield Bermuda, and then the RSM Seaside Plantation and or Sea Island, excuse me, Plantation and Seaside course. Those are the courses that make up the full entire data set for this Tiff Eagle Bermuda, or those are the courses that have Tiff Eagle Bermuda greens. And I went into a little bit in depth Monday evening at the end of the show, showing the correlation between putting, especially at the RSM, but putting on Tiff Eagle Bermuda in general, and performance here at the Sentry. So 15% in putting on Tiff Eagle Bermuda. Now you'll notice I'm going all the way back to 2019 just to make it statistically significant. This and one other metric, which is also putting based, are the only metrics or only stats that I'm using that go back further than the beginning of this calendar year. And I tried to notate that for you all here, all 2019, all 2023, etc. Yeah, see, I would like to have zoomed in for you all, but it takes off too much on the left side of your screen. But anyway, 15% in putting on Tiff Eagle Bermuda, 5% opportunities gained. Now, we didn't talk any about this on Monday evening. I tried to go into proximity. I didn't feel comfortable that total procs or a certain range of proximity made sense, based on the numbers. But with the size that these greens are, I don't want to look at just greens in regulation. I don't want to look at. I've got a lot in approach already. Opportunities gained always seems to be that missing metric whenever I am focused on, not focusing on proximity is the best way I should say that. So 5% in opportunities when it's easy. Again, all of this is going to be with easy to par filters because Kapalua is easy. 15% in birdies or better gained when it's easy. We spent a lot of time talking about how you need to go low here. You really do, because it's still easy. So birdies are better. I didn't feel comfortable enough that there were going to be enough eagles to look at them by themselves. So that might be one weakness. If eagles indeed are plentiful enough that you would want to single out the eagles gained. Perhaps there's players that are just good at eagles, but maybe not necessarily birdies. So that could be one potential downfall or weakness of the model. But I just felt more comfortable doing birdies are better. And I spent a lot of time on Monday talking about bogey avoidance and how it's been the most consistent metric here at Kapalua between bogey avoidance and birdies gained. Every single player who has played multiple years of the Sentry, the past 5 years, anyone who has averaged a top 20, has been positive in bogey avoidance. So you can't ignore that. So 10%, that might be a little bit heavy. This is kind of my tangent, my angle that I'm attacking with this week, hoping that I found the missing piece to make the most optimal mixed condition model. So I wouldn't fault someone if they wanted to go with 5%, but I do think it's correct to factor in bogey avoidance. And I spent some time, or I mentioned on Monday, talking how I would have used, or I was probably going to use long courses. I ended up going with the easy to par filter because I much prefer going with a scoring metric like bogey avoidance, birdies gained, with a scoring filter, easy to par, difficult to par, and whatnot. Plus, when I looked at the top 10, top 15, bottom 10, bottom 15 of bogey avoidance with the two filters, long course and easy, the players that were bogey avoidance, or that were pretty poor in bogey avoidance when it was easy, are the same players that have struggled here at Kapalua, so it matched. So there's the explanation on the scoring. Again, a little bit high here, but that's just my angle. But I think it is correct to look at a little bit of bogey avoidance. 5% in all par threes. I did end up putting par threes in. I wasn't sure I was going to, but looking back through some more of the years, more than just the 2 years that we looked at Monday night, par threes did play a little bit of a factor for your elite finishers. So I only have it at 5%. There are only 3 par threes here. It's not going to be a big contribution to someone winning, but it perhaps could give us an idea on players who could perhaps play well. Maybe not necessarily our winner. So 5% there. Only 5% in all par fours. Even though they are somewhat important, I did kind of run out of percentage. I did want to focus on the bogey avoidance. I ended up putting a little bit of opportunities gained in there. So only 5% on par fours. Maybe a little light there, but I just wanted to emphasize the par fives. Par fives, specifically 500 to 550 yards. We looked Monday night that almost all of the strokes gained for the par fives come in this range. 3 of the 4 par fives at Kapalua fall to this range. So we're just focusing on that range, and it's a little bit. We're leaving out the par 5 18th that plays 677. It kind of is what it is. The 500 to 550 par fives were much more correlating to success than just all par fives. And then lastly, 3-putt avoidance. We looked at this a little bit on Sunday evening, but didn't really go much into it on Monday. 3-putt avoidance, again, on Tiff Eagle, those same courses. So there's a look at the mixed condition model and perhaps some of the weaknesses of it. I've mentioned a couple of things. If around the green matters, it generally doesn't. If around the green ends up mattering, I don't think distance is going to. Again, I could be a little bit too heavy in the bogey avoidance. I think it should be at least 5%. I ended up putting 10. Probably correct to be 5, but we'll see. The par 4s might be a touch light. At 5%, maybe these need to be 10%, but I just really wanted to emphasize the par 5s. And if a certain proximity, total procs, anything to that effect matters, I'll be weak to that. But there's a look at the mixed condition model for the 2024 Sentry that I have made for the week. Let's go ahead and go to the reveal of my rankings. So Scotty Scheffler, number 1. Colin Morikawa is 2nd. Xander 3rd. Ricky 4th. Patrick Cantlay rounds out the top 5. Max Homa, Tom Kim, Victor Hovland, Ludwig Aubert, and Andrew Putnam round out my top 10. A reminder, since it's been a little while, how I put together my rankings based on 3 factors. The first is the FNGC rank. Is just a pure rank based on the mixed condition model that we just went through in Fantasy National, and then Fantasy National ranks your players based on the metrics and percentages you put in there. Course value. This is an attempt to give a player a value on how well they have played that course in the past 5 years. Lower the number, the better. And of course, we are playing DFS. We're trying to find, unique plays. So, percent owned also is a factor in my mixed condition model. So there's a look at my top 10. No real surprise here, I don't think. Always can argue the ordering of some of these players. Ludwig Aubert is the highest debutant. You can tell a debutant by the fact that he doesn't have a course value, or this is, in your view, blank. There is a number in here It's just arbitrarily high to because we don't know if a player is going to like a course or not. We can assume, but we don't know for sure. The one surprise for me is actually Andrew Putnam being 10th, and a lot of that is being helped by the fact that he is very unique. But he's actually played Kapalua, and he played it well his one time here, or maybe it was a couple times. He's played it somewhat well, much better than Victor Hovland has per se. Putnam's played it fairly well. Uniqueness, look, he's 4th on Tiff Eagle Bermuda. Really, really likes Tiff Eagle Bermuda now. He's definitely going to need to get better at getting birdies, but he also really likes the length of these par 5s, which I've wanted to emphasize. So after I looked at the stats, it didn't surprise me why Putnam rose. But to see him initially in the top 10, I was a little surprised. Otherwise, I mean, Victor Hovland with no around the green in here, he's going to rise significantly. But you see, even with the members of Fantasy National, they're kind of lower on him because they know he has not played well here. Ricky is a little bit low in terms of projected ownership, and he's played really well the one time he was here in the past 5 years. So there's a look at my rankings, or at least my top 10 for the Sentry. Enough rambling on that. Let's go on or sort on the price board, figure out where the chalk is and how we can maneuver around that. Figure out who our top pivots might be and whatnot. So we want to sort on salary. Goodness gracious, I am really out of practice. All right, in the 10Ks, in the 5 digits, we have 3 players this week since Rory is not here. Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, and Xander. These all 3 of these guys, rated out very well. Scotty is number 1, and look, the fact that he's actually in the top maybe 40% or so, 30, maybe top third in this field on Tiff Eagle Bermuda. Anytime he's going to putt field average, you got to really think about Scotty Scheffler. So, number 1 iron player. Number 7 and birdies are better gained when it's easy. Now, these short par 5s haven't been his best, but he avoids bogeys, gives himself a lot of opportunities. It's all about whether this putter's going to work, and that's actually not even his lowest statistic. We just saw the par 5s were 25th. His par 3s are 28th out of 59. But how much of the par 3 is going to matter? I don't think much. So I really like Scotty Scheffler. Have no problem with him being number 1 in my rankings, and I'm definitely going to be using him. Xander withdrew last year, but he is still the strokes gained total leader the past 5 years here. Just very solid at Kapalua. Victor Hovland, it depends on if you think there is a big increase in performance now that he's played here 3 years in a row. This will be his 4th. The first 2 years were really bad. Last year he tied for 18th, which is fine. But if you're headlining your team with that on a tie for 18th, you're falling behind in your DFS lineups. So that's why he's clearly the 3rd choice of the 3 in the 10Ks. So I'm just going to go straight by the rankings. For me, in the 10Ks and the 5 digits, Scotty Scheffler is my number 1 player in the top in the 5 digits. Then I'll go Xander. Then I'll go Victor Hovland. If his ownership does indeed stay low, I might have a little bit more of Hovland than what I'm insinuating. I just don't see his ownership being that low. I think Victor Hovland's going to be more popular than just 16%. My guess would be closer to the 20%. But I can just go by what is projected right now at Fantasy National. And they're labeling him right at 16%. So I'll go Scheffler, then Xander, then Victor. Moving to the 9Ks. And I'll actually zoom in for you all a little bit on this. Yeah. In the 9Ks, we have Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, Wyndham Clark, Matt Fitzpatrick, Brian Harman, Terrell Hatton, Colin Morikawa, and Tommy Fleetwood. There is a lot of have and have not in here, at least relative to each other. Colin Morikawa, second in my rankings, the most projected owned player. Going to be very, very popular, but for good reason. He has played very well here at Kapalua. Always hits his irons well. Tiff Eagle Bermuda, he's actually not too bad on. He's about field average on Tiff Eagle Bermuda. So much like Scotty Scheffler, if you think the putter isn't going to hold him back, it's a strong play. Goes low enough when it's easy. Cantley has played very well here. Homa's been okay here. So nothing wrong there. Although Homa might be a fade for me. The irons haven't been great. On Tiff Eagle Bermuda, he's good. Not excellent, but good. He's actually not been the greatest at going low when it's easy. And these par fives have been a struggle for someone elite like Max Homa. So he might be a bit of a fade. Cantley, I can take or leave. I'm not in love with it. I don't like the idea of headlining my team with Cantley. I just don't. Like I said, Homa might be a bit of a fade. Wyndham Clark, this seems like it should fit Wyndham Clark fairly well. Third in putting on Tiff Eagle Bermuda. I'm not too worried about the irons. I mean, he kind of had a little bit of a fall off after his win at the U.S. Open. You can expect that, or you're okay with that. Still a quickly rising player in the PGA Tour scene, PGA Tour rankings. His big downfall has been these very short par fives. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. I kind of like Wyndham Clark this week. Not so much on Matthew Fitzpatrick. I always try to look at Fitzpatrick when it's difficult. You see the birdies are better. Gained is really low, really bad. I'm much more in tune when it's difficult. That's generally when he plays his best, because even the bogey avoidance, when it's easy, he's not been all that great at. And you see he's not getting a whole lot of love, but he's played it okay here. I don't know. Lukewarm on Fitzpatrick. I don't like Brian Harman. I don't really have a good feel on Terrell Hatton either. He's a debutante. The iron, it just doesn't feel like a very good Hatton course. Hatton feels more short game and like a Patrick Reed style. When it's difficult, you need the putter, you need the around the green. So I just don't have a good strong feeling on Hatton. We talked about Morikawa. Fleetwood is fine, I suppose. Getting hurt a lot, I imagine, at least per Fantasy National, because he's a debutante. I would much go Fleetwood over Terrell Hatton, even though they're back-to-back in my rankings. I think I would go much more on Tommy Fleetwood if that's the case. Highlight the two rows and then kind of scroll over here. Fleetwood's irons are better. Putter, Terrell Hatton supposedly better, but I always think of Terrell Hatton on bent. So birdies are better. I have no issue with Tommy Fleetwood, the ability to go low. Off the tee, Fleetwood's a little bit better. Now, Tommy hasn't given himself a lot of opportunities. That's been his downfall. And then lastly, if they end up mattering, the par threes, Tommy Fleetwood's much better at than Terrell Hatton, so I think that might be a slight tiebreaker for me. I'll go Tommy Fleetwood over Terrell Hatton in the 9Ks. It's close. But there's a look at my 9Ks. Like I said, I'm going to use Morikawa. He's going to be the most owned player for good reason. I just think it's a safe play, good play. Cantley's okay. I do like Wyndham Clark, even though he's the lowest ranked of everyone in the 9Ks for me, other than Fitzpatrick. I do like Wyndham Clark. I don't have a great feel on Terrell Hatton. No thank you on Harman. No thank you on Fitzpatrick. Homa's going to be one of those gutsy fades for me. I can't call it a full fade, but it'll be a fade. Moving into the 8Ks, Tom Kim, Jordan Spieth, Ludwig Aubert, Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, Tony Finau, Cameron Young, Sam Burns, Sungjae, and Hideki. Just a lot of haves and have-nots again. Ricky Fowler 4th, Tom Kim 7th, Ludwig Aubert 9th, and Aubert's really only getting hurt by the fact that he's never played this before, so this value is a little bit higher. Because you see, at least analytically, purely by the analytics, without taking into consideration course, history, percent owned, Fantasy National has him at 2nd. The irons haven't been good, but that didn't stop him from winning the RSM. He putt extremely well at the RSM. He's #1 birdie or better gained player when it's easy. #1 off the tee. Aubert's got a lot going for him. He's going to be popular, I think. So that might be a reason to limit your usage of him. But I think it's going to be a good play. He's probably the player that I would pick him as the top debutant. I know that's not really going out on a limb, but I don't foresee Aubert struggling too much here. Famous last words. A lot of people like Jordan Spieth this week, or at least, talking about wagering. They've wagered Jordan Spieth. I'm just not there, I don't think. Irons haven't been great. He's not the best putter on specifically Tiff Eagle. He hadn't gone low. Like Spieth might be another fade for me. Ricky, I'm probably going to use if he's this low of ownership, especially since he's 4th. I'm a little surprised Tony Finau falls as far as he does in my rankings. The putter really hurts him, specifically on this surface. Surprisingly, he hasn't been the best at birdies or better gained when it's easy. I have to think that he'll be fine in that regard. But even so, this is probably a fade for me. With the bulky putter, I like Tony Finau for the entire year, but for the Sentry specifically, this might be a fade. Cameron Young finished top 15, finished tied for 13th. His one time he played here, okay, I suppose. The irons are the worst in the field. Well, second worst behind Jason Day, or ahead of Jason Day, but really, really bad. The putter, not great on this surface. That's very, very low ownership for somebody who feels like this course suits his game. If you're going to believe a whole lot in the putter, give Sam Burns a look. #1 on Tiff Eagle Bermuda, but you see the course value. It's really bad. He has really struggled here. Sungjae is going to be popular. He's generally fairly solid here at Kapalua. Hideki, I just think, is too much of an injury risk or withdrawal risk. Even though we haven't heard much about any nagging injuries from Hideki, it's just too much risk for me. So in the 8Ks, probably use quite a bit of Ricky Fowler if he is indeed only at 14.5%. Tom Kim's going to get a lot of love. I'll try to limit my use of him, but he'll probably be fairly decent. Aubert is going to be used a lot, so I'll try to limit my usage of him. But I think he'll play well this week. I like Cameron Young because this feels like it should fit his game. Moving into the upper 7s, Keegan, Sepp Straka, Russell Henley, Justin Rose, Sahith Theegala, Lucas Glover, Corey Connors. So these 8. Is that 8? 7. My bold suggestion is in this range. I really like Sepp Straka. He was tied for 21st last year. It's not great. The putter is pretty darn good, and he's a base Bermuda putter. You think about his win at the very, very difficult Honda. Granted, it's a couple years ago now, but he can putt this surface. His irons are coming around. The #1 player at this length of par 5s. I really like Sepp Straka this year or this week, and A lot of the former champions, you take a look at like Cameron Smith, finished like 25th, 17th, and then won. You have Xander. He finished 21st and then wins in his second year. Now, I'm not saying Sepp Straka is going to win, but I do think he's going to play extremely well. So this is my, bold suggestion. The one of maybe a couple of players that if they don't play well, I'm going to lose. I like Sepp Straka a lot. No thank you on Keegan. He has really, really struggled here. Russell Henley, all about the irons. Okay, I suppose. Surprisingly, Sahith Theegala is my lowest rated player. I don't know. He did not play this very, very well last year at all. Finished 33rd out of 38 or 39. None of the metrics really pop for him, so that's why he's the lowest. I don't hate Sahith Theegala this week. I really don't. But in the upper sevens, I'm just focused on Sepp Straka. No thank you on Keegan. Russell Henley's fine, just kind of, Justin Rose, not really all that excited about. No thank you at all on Corey Connors, and no thank you on Lucas Glover. So really in the upper sevens, it's kind of Sepp Straka, maybe a touch of Henley and Rose. Moving to the low sevens, Eric Cole, Kurt Kitayama, Denny McCarthy, Harris English, JT Poston, Emiliano Grillo, Cam Davis, Siwoo Kim, Adam Hadwin, and Nick Taylor. So these 10. Cole's going to be very popular, probably for good reason. Just outside of my top 10. Top 10 in irons. 8th on this specific surface. 2nd in birdies or better gained. Just really, really strong. And the one thing you can knock about him is his off the tee. These fairways are so darn wide. I just don't think it's going to hurt him all that much. That's why he's one of the more popular plays, especially down lower in the price board. So if you can avoid him, I would suggest you do so. But if you don't, I understand why. It's a really, really good play, I think. Don't hate Denny McCarthy as a debutant either, all around that putter. I think his irons are getting better. I think he's going to show out quite a bit this year. I would not be surprised if he wins at some point this year. For this week, I don't hate it. He's the number 2 putter, number 1-3 putt avoider. He's also top 10 in par 4s, and I think I'm a little light on the par 4s. So I don't hate Denny McCarthy either. Harris English is a former winner here. Harris English and Sepp Straka are the 2 bold plays that I have for this week. Harris English, if he doesn't play well, if Sepp Straka doesn't play well, I'm going to lose. Harris English won this event 2 years ago. Top 5 on this surface. The irons are good. He's getting healthy. I'm all in on Harris English, especially if this 6.2% is indeed accurate. Poston's getting some love. Okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I don't like the ownership. The player's fine. I don't like the ownership. No thanks on Grillo. He's really fallen off lately towards the end of the PGA Tour season and the fall. Cam Davis, I want to like. I hate this ownership. He is very, very popular. And that putter can get bulky. Can get pretty poor. The irons haven't been the greatest either. I want to like Cam Davis. Might not be this week. Might not be this week for Cam Davis. No thanks on Siwoo. No thanks on Hadwin. Like I said, I'm just kind of all in on Harris English in the low 7s. Finally, we go to the 6Ks. Your most projected on player in the 6Ks getting a whole lot of love is Luke List, which is a shame because I really wanted to hype up Luke List. I kind of highlighted him at the end of the show Monday. At this percentage, it's close to a fade. I'm going to use some Luke List, especially since I can squeeze in a lot going all the way down to 62 in those Stars and Scrubs lineups. But at that percentage, it is close to a fade. He is getting a whole lot of love. Elsewhere in the 6Ks, if you want to believe in the prior course form, Tom Hoagie finished 3rd. It was either last year or 2 years ago. he's always a very good iron player. The putter is not terrible on this surface. Okay, maybe. I'll be using Putnam. Like I said, top 15 his one time here, or maybe averages a top 20. Very good on the surface. Top 20 with the irons. 5th at the specific range of par 5. So I'll be using some Putnam. Another debutant to take a look at is Vincent Norman. And all of that is based on his par 5 prowess. He devours par 5s. The irons haven't been good. He is really bad on this specific surface. It's all about the par 5s, which he's top 10 at the specific length. He's also top 5 off the tee. So that's another debutant that if you want to get unique, I don't hate at all at 6,500. So there's a look at the price board, where the chalk is, how I see it playing out, some potential pivots, who the players I'm fading. Let's start making some lineups. We're going to start with tiers contests for those who play tiers. So tier 1, we have Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, and Xander Schauffele. Again, I think tiers ownerships are going to be a little bit different than what Fantasy National projects for the classic lineups. If Victor Hovland is drastically lower in tiers in terms of ownership, if you think that, then take Victor Hovland just because of the uniqueness. Otherwise, I'm going to just take Scotty Scheffler. I know it's surprising taking passing over the number 1 strokes gained total leader the past 5 years here at Kapalua. Just give me Scotty Scheffler, especially since, as we talked about, the putter on this surface is actually kind of good. It's not great. It's not elite. It's just kind of good. So give me Scotty Scheffler in tier 1. Not particularly close unless you think Hovland's very unique. Tier 2, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, Wyndham Clark, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Tyrrell Hatton. I don't have a good feel on Hatton, so if you do, and you like him, I don't hate it. But I'm going to go with Wyndham Clark. Again, I just feel like this probably fits him pretty well. I think he could be a surprise debutante performer. If you're wanting to stay away from the debutantes, then I would take Cantlay, but he's going to be very, very popular. Another thing with Clark is he's looking like he's going to be unique. So that's another bonus. I kind of like Wyndham Clark for that regard, or in that regard. Tier 3, Brian Harman, Colin Morikawa, Tommy Fleetwood, Tom Kim, and Ludwig Aubert. You're going to have 3 heavy hitters in terms of ownership in here. Morikawa, Tom Kim, and Aubert. Aubert is going to be very popular. Colin Morikawa is the most projected owned player. Might be a good what did I do? Might be a good thing on uniqueness for Tommy Fleetwood. I'm just going to have to take Colin Morikawa. He's just played this event so darn well. The putter's good here. Aubert is also, well worthy. Just give me Colin Morikawa, the known commodity, especially since Wyndham Clark is a bit of a home run play, debutante, all that stuff. So I'll take the quote safety of Colin Morikawa. Tier 4, we have Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, Tony Finau, Cameron Young, Sam Burns, and Hideki. For Ricky Fowler. Seemingly pretty unique. I don't like Spieth. I don't like Day. Cameron Young should be okay. Should be good. Just give me Ricky Fowler. I don't think it's particularly close in Tier 4 either. Maybe Cameron Young. Maybe Tony Finau. But give me Ricky in Tier 4. Tier 5, we have Sung Jae, Keegan Bradley, Sepp Straka, Russell Henley, Justin Rose, Sahith Theegala, and Lucas Glover. Again, pretty easy tier for me. It's Sepp Straka. I'm all in on Sepp Straka this week. So Sung Jae, generally pretty good. Kind of a safer play. But you're also gaining a lot of uniqueness, I think, with Sepp Straka. Henley should be okay as well. But give me Sepp Straka in Tier 5. Lastly, Tier 6, JT Poston, Cam Davis, Siwoo Kim, Adam Hadwin, Nick Taylor, Adam Schenk, Brendan Todd. bleh. Don't like much in here at all. Nick Taylor could be interesting. I know he didn't play it well his one time he was here. Not really excited about Shank or Brendan Todd or Adam Hadwin for that matter. And absolutely no thank you on Griot. So Poston and Davis are extremely popular. So Nick Taylor might be okay. But in Tier 6, I think it's got to be Cam Davis. I don't love it. I really don't like it, but Tier 6 might have to be Cam Davis. So the tiers construction for the Sentry this week, I'll go Scheffler, I'll go Wyndham Clark, a lot for uniqueness. I'm trying to hit a home run. Morikawa in Tier 3, Ricky Fowler in Tier 4, Sepp Straka in Tier 5, Cam Davis in Tier 6. All right, let's move to classic lineups and figure out how we can, or what the chalky lineups are that our fellow contestants are building in our big GPPs and how we can maneuver around that. So if we're going to build a chalky lineup, we'll just start with the two most common plays. It's Xander and Colin Morikawa. Already you're sitting at a 10% on two players essentially. Almost 30% projected on Morikawa, almost or 25% exactly on Xander. It's a lot of ownership in those two players. So this is going to be the bulk of a lot of chalky lineups, I think. Moving down into the 8s, you've got Obear. Yeah, Obear is definitely probably in this. Maybe not. They might come off of Xander to maybe Cantley or Homa to try to save a little bit of money, but Obear is definitely in this. He's going to be wildly popular, I would think, at 87. Over 20% as well. Now it only leaves them, 7,400 per player. They're skipping over the Tony Finau, the Sung Jae most likely. Looking like Eric Cole. Actually, no, they probably could go Sung Jae in this. Go Sung Jae, Eric Cole. Yeah, 67 would go all the way down to either Tom Hoge or Luke List. I don't want to bottom them out at that, so let me see what I can do here. The Cameron Davis, I'm trying to prevent them from going to the 6Ks and save Luke List for the Stars and Scrubs chalky lineup. So Cam Davis leaves our fellow contestants $75.50 per. That's just Poston and Cole, looks like. Maybe Russell Henley, but I'll just use the more projected owned players. So JT Poston and Eric Cole, leaving a little bit of money on the table, $500 on the table, but 21.5% projected ownership, matching in these GPPs. Very, very chalky lineup here. Just horrendous. Don't want any part of that. Again, a lot of players that I like. Xander, obviously Morikawa. I'll be using some Obear. Just can't put all of these players together. It's going to be too chalky if you're trying to really, really have the chance to rise in your GPPs. This is probably a pretty decent 50-50 lineup where first place and the bottom pay is the same. So in your 50-50s and whatnot, maybe a single entry as well, but this is really chalky for a GPP. If they're going to go Stars and Scrubs, and I'm doing this because Luke List is so daggone popular, they'll go Scheffler, Luke List. This might be Xander, but let's throw in another name here just to get some new names in here. This easily as well could be Patrick Cantlay. I'm just using Homa to get 200 in savings. Depending on how greedy the player is, they might actually try to fit Colin Morikawa in this. I think that's a little bit too much. Obear is definitely probably in this as well. Yeah, I was going to try to do one without Obear. Ludwig Omer. In fact, let's do that. Sung Jae. We'll drop down to Sung Jae. And again, you got this 7,500 per player here. This is, we'll go Russell Henley this time. And then Eric Cole. No, that's actually 100 over. That'd be JT Poston. So here's another fairly chalky, or perhaps one of the more chalky stars and scrubs lineups, but still a fairly chalky lineup overall. Going all the way up to Scheffler, going all the way down to Luke List, who's getting a lot of love as well. So how are we going to maneuver around these chalky lineups? Well, I don't particularly like Victor Hovland, but if he is, in fact, so very, very scarcely owned compared to the other two, you might want to think about that. Otherwise, you're going to have to choose where you're going to plant your flag on, or who you're going to plant your flag on at the top of the board, whether it's Scotty, whether it's Xander. Maybe you do a combination of like Cantley and Morikawa or whatnot. I'm going to try to build a balanced build first, as I've been leaning the other way. But if we're going to do a balanced build, let's start with Patrick Cantley, as I'm not crazy about Max Homa. And then I'll go Wyndham Clark. Again, I just think that he could be a surprise debutante. Doing a lot of Wyndham Clark instead of Morikawa for the uniqueness. And this should fit him fairly well. With this, we maybe could take a Ludwig Ober if we felt like. We don't have to. Could come down to maybe a Tom Kim, Ricky Fowler. Yeah, we'll throw Ricky in this since I'm trying to build this as a more balanced-ish build. Moving on down, Sepp Straka is somebody I'm very, very high on, but I'm saving that one in there. So we have 7,300 per player. Again, I mentioned I don't hate Denny McCarthy at all around that putter, and the irons are getting them much better. We've been fairly unique enough that I think we could probably take an Eric Cole in this lineup. Not excited about a whole lot else down here, so let's throw in Eric Cole, Denny McCarthy. Leaves us 7,200. Poston is fine. You wouldn't be able to combine that with Eric Cole, I don't think. I think that's starting to get a little too popular. Cam Davis, much the same. Again, I'm not too crazy about Siwoo or Adam Hadwin. We bottomed this out at Nick Taylor. I don't think that's an awful idea. We're saving $200, but compared to the 21 point whatever god awful percentage it was, we're saving a whole lot of percentage here. Cantley has played extremely well here in the past. Ricky has played well here in the past. Eric Cole, everybody seems to be on him. He's been playing very well. A lot more speculative down here, I give you that. But I think Denny McCarthy could be a surprise, especially with the putter and how important putting is here at Kapalua. Nick Taylor, much the same. So there's a unique look at a balanced lineup. One that I wouldn't mind throwing in there, but I would definitely be moving some of these pieces around. But where I've been going more often than not is in these stars and scrubs look or feel of lineups. Again, number one player in my lineup. I'm going to plant my flag and use Scotty Scheffler this week. I would like to use Colin Morikawa. I don't think I'll be able to. I'm only able to do this because I'm willing to use some Luke List. Andrew Putnam, 6,400. Vincent Norman, 6,500. There's some uniqueness that I do not mind going down to. So I'll put in Andrew Putnam for now. Don't know if I'm confident or crazy enough to do both. But that's one way you could get a lot of uniqueness. Like if you were willing to do both, Putnam and Gosh dang it. Putnam and Norman. Mental freeze. Vincent Norman. I mean, they're saving up a whole lot here where you could go Scotty, you could go Colin, Tom Kim. You still have 8,100. That's Sung Jae if you're there, Sepp Straka if you're there. I don't know if I'm that confident in doing that. But even so, we can still look at doing a Scheffler and Morikawa. This could easily be Wyndham Clark. Maybe you have a strong feeling on Hatton or Fleetwood. Evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. Not a problem at all. I'm just glad you take the time to drop in and catch the content. Hopefully things have been well. Happy New Year to you. I see. Hopefully that is you that voted to the top 10. Who do you think is going to be the top debutante? I mean, I didn't exactly go out on a limb. I still think it's going to be Ludwig Aubert, but I've given a couple of interesting names to perhaps think about for top debutante. But I still think it's going to be Ludwig Aubert. To finalize this Stars and Scrubs-ish lineup, Scotty, Colin Morikawa, let's go. I mean, we used Ricky. I'm not wildly crazy about Cameron Young or Tony Finau. I think Ludwig Aubert is probably going to be too expensive and too much ownership. But if you're able to find a way to squeeze it in, I really do like that. Now we're left with $7,400 per player. This is all revolving around Sepp Straka, Harris English. If I were to go Aubert, I can't do Straka and English, which is what I'm trying to do since I am very high on both of them. So doing those two leaves us at 84, which is Finau. I don't hate it. He's a little popular. You could really struggle. Cameron Young, I also don't hate. So pick one of those two to round out this lineup. I'll go with Finau. He's the more popular of the two, but again, 15% versus the 18 or whatever that Stars and Scrubs was, the chalky Stars and Scrubs. If you want to back that off, you can go Cameron Young, make it even lower. You're probably looking at a pretty unique lineup with these four. I mean, this percentage is getting, exacerbated by these two. If you wanted to deviate a little bit off of this, English and Straka might be a little bit too much for you. Like I said, you can go Ludwig Aubert. I really do like Sepp Straka this week. And 7,000, you have Nick Taylor. I'm not particularly excited about Shank or Brendan Todd. Maybe you have a strong feeling about one of them. Chris Kirk, been on. Again, I'm not terribly excited about, but Chris Kirk rated out fairly well. A lot of that to do with the putter, and his irons have been okay. Third in opportunity, so maybe Chris Kirk is somebody you take a flyer on. But if it were me, I'd probably just go with this and go Vincent Norman. Leave all that on the table and be pretty unique thanks to the combination of these three. So that's what I have for you all. I'll stick around for a minute or two, see if there are any questions. Would love to hear from the community who your top debutante is. Where do they finish? Who wins? Have you put any wagers in? All of that good stuff. I like Akshay debutante. I don't hate it. He did not rate out well at all for me. I don't actually hate that. The irons, I think, are a little better than what's showing. Obviously, the putter is still pretty darn bad. That's what's hurting him in the rankings. I actually don't hate that, P. I don't hate that at all. Very good when it's easy. When you have to score, you think about his win at the Barracuda where you have to score. Makes a lot of sense. He's actually pretty good off the tee, especially when it's easy. He does struggle a little bit with these shorter par fives. And what surprised me is, as good as he is, birdies are better easy. He actually struggles with bogey avoidance when it's easy. So that's kind of what threw me away from Batia, where I went Andrew Putnam and Vincent Norman in the 6Ks. But there was a long while earlier this week I was looking at Batia a lot. So I like that. I like that shot there, P. I do. But I think that's going to do it for the show. Thanks to P for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Whether you're at the end of the show, beginning, whatever, I'm just glad that you're able to tune in and watch. You take the time to do so. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, and supports the channel. Love what I do, trying to give you a statistician and a data analyst's view of golf metrics, baseball, whenever it's baseball season, some optimal plays, and with the goal of trying to win a little bit of money in the process. Love what I do. Wouldn't be able to do it without you all, so I thank you all for that. For all of the wagers that you have made this week for the Sentry, for all of the DFS contests you play this week for the Sentry, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.